Chapter 1. The Discovery. In a quiet small town, sunlight filtered through leaf gaps and shone on old houses. Alex and Emily, two energetic and curious teenagers, were rummaging through Alex's cluttered attic as usual. Emily complained, "Oh dear, it's all just old boxes and rags here." She brushed dust off her face. Alex encouraged, "Keep looking. Maybe there's a surprise." Suddenly, Alex's foot knocked against something hard. Looking down, he saw a large wooden chest hidden beneath old blankets. Excitedly, he called Emily over. Together, they struggled to pull the heavy chest out. As they pried open the lid, the hinges creaked, revealing a jumble of old items. Among them, a rolled-up parchment caught Alex's attention. Carefully unrolling it, he gasped, "Emily, look at this." It was an ancient map with frayed edges and faded ink, yet the outline of a mysterious island was clearly visible. Emily's eyes widened in astonishment. "Could this be real?" Alex replied, "I don't know, but it sure looks interesting." Their hearts pounding with excitement, they spent the next few minutes poring over the map, imagining the adventures that might await them on this unknown island. Little did they know this discovery would lead them on an unforgettable journey. Chapter 2. The Expert's Opinion. Eager to learn more about the mysterious map, Alex and Emily decided to seek Professor Jenkins' help. Carrying the map, they went to the professor's office at the local university. Entering the room, Alex said, "Professor Jenkins, we think we found something important." The professor, with spectacles perched on the tip of his nose, looked up from his stack of books. "Oh, let me see." They spread the map on the professor's desk. His eyes widened as he examined it closely. "This is remarkable. I believe this could be the map to a lost island that has been the subject of many historical speculations." Emily's face lit up. "Really? But how can we be sure?" The professor pointed to some symbols and markings on the map. "These are indications of an ancient civilization. It's highly likely that this island holds significant historical secrets." Excited by the professor's words, Alex asked, "Will you come with us to explore it, Professor?" After a moment's hesitation, the professor nodded. "Yes, but we need to prepare thoroughly." Chapter 3. Preparations. With the professor on board, the trio began their adventure preparations. They spent days in the library researching the island's history and possible dangers. Alex and Emily collected essential supplies like food, water, camping gear, and first aid kits. The professor gathered books and tools for documenting and analyzing any discoveries. They also had to arrange transportation. After much searching, they found a captain willing to take them to the approximate location indicated on the map. The days passed in a flurry of activity as they made sure they were ready for whatever awaited them on a lost island. Chapter 4. The voyage begins. Finally, the day came for them to set sail. The ship named the Adventurer left the harbor with Alex, Emily, and Professor Jenkins on board, filled with anticipation and excitement. The first few days at sea were relatively calm. The sun shone brightly, and the ocean breeze was refreshing. They spent time on deck sharing stories and imagining what they would find on the island. However, as they ventured further into the unknown, the weather began to change. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the wind picked up, making the ship rock from side to side. The crew worked frantically to secure sails and equipment as the storm approached. Chapter 5. Stormy Seas. The storm hit with full force. Waves as tall as houses crashed against the ship, threatening to break it apart. The howling wind made it difficult to hear or see anything. Alex and Emily clung to the rails, their faces pale with fear. Professor Jenkins, though equally scared, tried to remain calm and offer words of encouragement. The captain shouted orders, and the crew fought valiantly to keep the ship afloat. It was a terrifying battle against the elements. Just when it seemed all was lost, the storm began to ease. The waves calmed, and the wind died down. The ship, battered but still intact, continued on its course towards the mysterious island. Exhausted but relieved, the trio huddled together, knowing more challenges awaited them. Chapter 6. Land in Sight. After days of sailing through rough seas, the weather finally cleared. One morning, as the sun rose above the horizon, Alex was the first to spot land. "Land! I see land!" he shouted excitedly. Everyone rushed to the deck, eyes fixed on the distant outline of the island. The professor pulled out his binoculars and studied the terrain. "It appears to be the island from the map," he said, excitement in his voice. As they drew closer, the island's details became clearer. Covered in lush greenery, with mountains rising in the center and a white sandy beach along the coast. The captain steered the ship to a safe spot to anchor, and soon they were ready to disembark. Chapter 7. The Jumble Entry. With backpacks filled with supplies, Alex, Emily, and Professor Jenkins stepped onto the island. Entering the jungle, they were greeted by heat and humidity. Strange sounds echoed around them, and the undergrowth was thick and tangled. Alex led the way, using a machete to cut through vines. Emily followed closely, keeping an eye out for danger. The professor documented their progress, noting down the different plants and animals. As they pushed deeper into the jungle, they came across a narrow path that seemed made by someone or something. Could this be a sign that others have been here before? Emily wondered aloud. They decided to follow the path and see where it led. Chapter 8. Ruins Revealed. The path led them to a clearing where ancient ruins emerged from overgrowth. The stone structures were covered in moss and ivy, with columns, arches, and what looked like temples. "Look at this. It's incredible," Alex exclaimed. They began to explore the ruins, carefully stepping over fallen stones and avoiding unstable structures. The professor pointed out the intricate carvings and symbols on the walls, speculating about the civilization that once thrived here. Suddenly, Emily noticed a hidden door at the back of one building. "Guys, look over here," she called out. They gathered around the door, wondering what lay behind it. Chapter 9. The First Clue. With effort, they pushed open the door. Inside, they found a small chamber with a pedestal in the center. On the pedestal was a stone tablet with strange markings. The professor studied it closely. "This could be our first clue to the island's secrets," he said. As they tried to decipher the markings, they heard voices approaching. It was the treasure hunters. "Quick, hide," Alex whispered. They ducked behind rubble and held their breaths as the treasure hunters entered the chamber. Chapter 10. Treasure Hunters Encounter. The treasure hunters, a group of rough-looking men armed with tools and weapons, didn't notice Alex and his friends at first. They were too busy examining the tablet and arguing among themselves. Suddenly, one of them turned and spotted Alex. "Hey, what are you kids doing here?" he shouted. A tense standoff ensued. Alex, Emily, and the professor knew they had to think fast to avoid trouble. "We're just explorers, like you," Alex said, trying to sound calm. The treasure hunters didn't believe them and demanded they hand over any discoveries. Just as things were about to get ugly, the professor had an idea. "Let's work together. There's enough treasure for everyone," he suggested. The treasure hunters hesitated, then agreed. But Alex and his friends knew they had to be careful and find a way to outsmart them. Chapter 11. Evading the Enemy. Although they had an uneasy alliance with the treasure hunters, Alex, Emily, and Professor Jenkins remained vigilant. They understood that the treasure hunters couldn't be trusted and were always on the lookout for a chance to break free. As they continued exploring the ruins, they came across a series of narrow passageways. Alex noticed that one passage seemed to lead deeper into the heart of the complex, while the others appeared to be dead ends or traps. He quietly shared his observations with Emily and the professor. Then they decided to take advantage of this. Pretending to find a valuable clue, Alex led the treasure hunters towards one of the false passages. Once the treasure hunters were inside, they quickly blocked the entrance with some fallen stones, temporarily trapping them. "Let's go," Alex shouted. The trio then ran as fast as they could through the correct passage, leaving behind the angry shouts of the treasure hunters. However, they knew that it was only a matter of time before the treasure hunters found a way out and resumed their pursuit. Chapter 12. Traps and Challenges. The deeper they went into the ruins, the more dangerous the obstacles became. There were hidden pits filled with sharp spikes, swinging blades that popped out from the walls, and floors that gave way underfoot. At one point, Emily almost fell into a pit, but Alex pulled her back just in time. The professor used his knowledge of ancient civilizations to try to predict the traps. Still, they had to move carefully and rely on their instincts. They also encountered puzzles that required them to move stone blocks or line up symbols in the correct order to open doors or activate mechanisms. Each challenge tested their patience and teamwork. As they overcame one obstacle after another, they became more determined to uncover the secrets of the island. Chapter 13. Puzzle Solving. They entered a large room filled with stone slabs engraved with complex patterns. The professor studied the patterns for a while and realized that they needed to arrange the slabs in a specific sequence to reveal the next passage. Alex and Emily started moving the heavy slabs, while the professor guided them based on his deductions. It was a difficult task, and they had to use all their strength and intelligence. After several failed attempts and narrow escapes from more traps, they finally managed to solve the puzzle. A hidden door slid open, revealing a dark passageway. Without hesitation, they entered, hoping it would lead them closer to their goal. Chapter 14. Secret Passages. The passage was narrow and dimly lit. They had to crouch down and move slowly to avoid hitting their heads on the low ceiling. Along the way, they discovered more clues about the island's history and the purpose of the ruins. The walls were decorated with paintings that seemed to tell a story of powerful magic and a great disaster. Emily took pictures of the paintings with her camera, determined to document everything for future study. After a long and difficult journey through the winding passage, they emerged into a vast chamber filled with ancient artifacts and machinery. Chapter 15. The Chamber of Wonders. The chamber was an amazing sight. Golden statues, jeweled trinkets, and strange devices were scattered around. In the center of the room, there was a large pedestal with a glowing orb on top. As they approached the pedestal, they felt a strange energy coming from the orb. The professor theorized that it might be the source of the island's power and the key to unlocking its secrets. But when they reached out to touch the orb, the chamber started to shake. Alarms sounded, and walls began to close in on them. They realized that they had triggered another trap and needed to act quickly to escape. Chapter 16. The Magic Artifact. Just as the walls were about to crush them, Alex noticed a hidden lever on the side of the pedestal. He pulled it with all his strength, and the mechanism stopped. The orb, however, started to glow even brighter, and a beam of light shot out, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside the compartment was a small, intricately carved crystal. The moment Alex picked it up, he felt a strange tingling sensation in his hand. Could this be the magic artifact we've been looking for? Emily asked. The professor examined it closely. I think it is. But we must be careful. We don't know its full power or how to control it. As they were discussing the artifact, they heard the treasure hunters approaching. They quickly hid the crystal and prepared for another confrontation. Chapter 17. Double Cross. The treasure hunters burst into the chamber, weapons in hand. But to Alex's surprise, one of their allies, a man named Jake, who had seemed friendly until then, stepped forward and pointed his gun at them. Sorry, kids. The treasure is too valuable. I'm with them now, Jake said. Alex, Emily, and the professor were stunned. They had trusted Jake, and now they were at a serious disadvantage. The treasure hunters demanded that they hand over the artifact. The professor tried to reason with them, but they wouldn't listen. Just when it seemed like all was lost, Emily had an idea. Chapter 18. Volcano's Warning. Emily noticed that the ground was starting to tremble slightly. Look, the volcano. It's about to erupt, she shouted. Everyone turned to see smoke and ash rising from the top of the mountain. Panic spread among the treasure hunters. Taking advantage of the chaos, Alex, Emily, and the professor made a run for it. They navigated through the maze of chambers and passages, with the treasure hunters close behind. As they reached the exit of the ruins, the tremors grew stronger, and rocks started to fall from the ceiling. Chapter 19. Escape Plan. Outside, they found themselves in the middle of a chaotic scene. The island's wildlife was in a panic, and the ground was cracking. They knew they needed to get back to the ship quickly. The professor suggested using some of the precious jewels they had found as a bribe to get the captain to wait for them. They split up. Alex and Emily went to find the captain while the professor tried to hold off the treasure hunters. It was a race against time as they fought through the obstacles and danger. Chapter 20. Homeward Bound. Alex and Emily managed to convince the captain with the jewels, and the ship was ready to leave. Just as the professor arrived, followed closely by the treasure hunters, they all boarded and set sail. The volcano erupted behind them, sending a cloud of ash and lava into the sky. The ship was buffeted by the waves, but they managed to stay afloat. As they sailed away from the island, exhausted but victorious, they knew they had experienced an adventure of a lifetime. Back home, they were hailed as heroes. The professor published his findings, and Alex and Emily's names were forever linked to the discovery of the lost island. They knew that their friendship and teamwork had been the key to their survival and success.